Charles I, or Charlemagne as the world knows him best, was the king of the Franks from 768, the king of Italy from 774, and from 800 the first emperor in Western Europe since the collapse of the Western Roman Empire 3 centuries earlier. The expanded Frankish state he founded is called the Carolingian Empire. Charlemagne was the eldest child of Pepin the Short, who reigned as king of the Carolingian Empire from 751 through 768. Under Charlemagne's rule, the Carolingian Empire expanded far past its borders that it had originally known under his father. Under Charlemagne, the boundaries of the Carolingian Empire were pushed to include modern-day France and Germany. Such a large territory was not inherited, it was conquered. Charlemagne's armies participated in several different campaigns to bring new territory into his empire. As king of the Franks, he conquered more land than any other medieval king, and he was one of the few with the intellectual skills, military prowess, and diplomatic abilities to keep it intact throughout his lifetime.
Born the son of Pepin the Short and grandson of Charles Martel, Charlemagne was groomed to be a great leader. Little is known about his early childhood, but we do know he fought his first battles alongside his father against Wayfair of Aquitaine. Pepin died shortly after his defeat of Wayfair. With his father dead, Charlemagne entered a brief dispute with his brother Carloman I that would end in his untimely, though incidental, death. With the death of his brother, Charlemagne was now the sole ruler of a vast empire, and he was about to change the Western world forever.
The first territory Charlemagne turned his armies to was in the south of France. He had been there before under the command of his father. He put down several Aquitanian revolts and won easily. The Lombards were enemies of Pope Leo III. Charlemagne's conquest of them for the glory of Rome earned him the respect and admiration of the Catholic Church. Charlemagne pushed further south into the tip of Italy, but complications would arise, preventing him from ever conquering the Duchy of Benevento. In what is now modern-day France, the Saxons remained an unchristian people within grasp of Charlemagne. Charlemagne would lead several campaigns into Saxony, each time reasserting his dominance. These wars were only interrupted by campaigns to further control Italy. The Saxon Wars lasted 30 years and included over 18 major battles. A goal of these wars was the conversion of the pagan Saxons. Almost all major engagements Charlemagne won ended with the forced conversion to the people he had conquered. The conversion of the Saxons was important as they were among the last pagan people in Western Europe. With their conversion, it created Christendom, a unified Western Europe under papal authority. Playing to the Pope's desires and bringing people under Christian authority appeared to have been one of Charlemagne's goals. In 799, he was rewarded for spreading Christianity so far.
After fleeing for his life from an angry mob of Romans, Pope Leo III moved to the Carolingian Empire and took refuge with Charlemagne. During his refuge, the Pope crowned Charlemagne Holy Roman Emperor, granting him all the lands and titles that go with it. This alliance made both Charlemagne and the Pope extremely powerful. It is important to know how Charlemagne used that power vested in him by the Pope to grow his empire.
Charlemagne's kingdom was in a relatively constant state of war and expansion. By the time of his death, he had the largest empire since the fall of the Romans, ruling almost all of continental Western Europe. He was able to dominate his rivals through effective use of heavy cavalry. The development of the stirrup greatly aided in maneuvering charges and coordinating attacks, giving Charlemagne's troops a significant advantage. In addition, the large numbers of horses owned by the Carolingian Empire made transporting troops across land easy. Charlemagne's frequent maneuvering between campaigns required horses and allowed his military to effectively patrol the lands.
Charlemagne made much progress. His heirs were not quite as effective as he or his father Pepin the Short were. Louis the Pious would hold the nation together, but after his death it fell into civil war and warring factions composed mostly of Louis's children. The military might of Charlemagne was needed, but could not be sustained by his heirs, and Charlemagne's ability to conquer revolting territory was not inherited by his offspring. Very few medieval kings and lords were able to amass a territory that would even compare to the Carolingian Empire. Most would be lost in the game of feudalism and were unable to make the connections, win the battles, or win the favor of the Pope in the same manner Charlemagne was able to. It was these traits that would allow Charlemagne to win a mass of Europe, and their difficulty to emulate that prevented so many weak kings and lords from ever achieving a true empire.